It's another episode of The Line Change, Fox Sports The Gambler. We are back. Took a week off because Sean Brace had to take a vacation, so I had to be Sean Brace for a week. Line Change is back. Get it wherever you get your podcasts, whether that is the Apple Store or wherever you go for your podcast. Also Spotify and our YouTube channel. Subscribe, Fox Sports The Gambler. My name is Jon Jansen. Follow me at jjansen34. One of my favorite guests that I used to bring on the Line Change all the time to talk some football, college basketball mostly. I mean, his name is Mid-Major Matt for a reason because, well, he nails mid-major college basketball and all college basketball. It is Matt Josephs. Matt, it has been a while. It's good to talk college basketball with you again.
Oh, yeah. Today, I don't think there was a lot of productivity around the country. Everybody filling out brackets, NIT brackets, CBI brackets, all that fun stuff.
How many brackets do you fill out?
I'll do 3 maybe. I'm not in as many pools as I used to be. I'll do one that I fill out like right after the show, and then I'll do one after thinking a bunch, and then maybe like one really close to the start, just in case something changes.
Yeah, mine, I end up just filling out brackets whenever I have time. So I end up with at least maybe 7 or 8. Not all of them are in pools, but I just like filling them out. I just like to do chaotic ones, ones where, I just go with something different. I don't know. It's fun to fill out a bracket, but it's also fun to bet on it as well. And I think that's starting to take priority now is more betting. But I'm going to start off right away with the tournament. Usually it's a lot of underdogs. We ask for what's the upsets. I just want to ask about UConn. I think I'm most fascinated coming into this tournament is how locked in UConn is as the number one team and how much better they seem than everyone else. So I'll ask that. I mean, how much better are they than everyone else? And should we be locking them in for the most part as the team to win it all in our brackets?
Yeah, I think UConn's the best team in the country. I think it's a pretty healthy margin before number 2 comes along, and that's probably Houston, I would say, as the second best team. But I mean, UConn's just deep. They've got a great coach. They have not fallen prey to the whole like, hey, we won last year, let's play a little laissez-faire in the second year. They played that they're arguably even better this year, it feels like at times. And yeah, their bracket's a little tough. Auburn will be interesting if they get there for the Sweet 16. And then, of course, they may see somebody good in the Elite Eight, whether it's Illinois or Iowa State. But like nobody really scares me because they're on the half of the bracket where the Final Four, I think there's going to be chaos in North Carolina's region. And then if they play Houston in the championship game, like Houston's defense is really good, but I don't think their offense can keep up with UConn.
How did that happen with UConn? Because, I mean, I look at that roster. It's not full of a bunch of NBA talent. Usually some of the one-and-done guys, like, we've seen Anthony Davis carry a team. But even just locally, the Villanova teams, I mean, we found out there's a bunch of NBA players on that team, and it was really good back in 2018. But this is different. I don't know. It feels like this team is a machine. Why is that? What happened with UConn for the past couple of seasons that has made them sort of this juggernaut, all the while not, I think, having it's not to say they don't have talent. It's not overwhelming talent. It's just they're well coached. They play well. Everything works together. How did that all kind of come together for Danny Hurley?
I mean, I think they brought back a lot of the talent. Tristan Newton came back. Alex Caravan came back. Donovan Clingan came back. They were good, but they weren't good enough for the NBA. And then you bring in a freshman like Stephon Castle, and then you add a kid like Cam Spencer, who was pretty good at Rutgers and now has taken it another level. I think that's kind of how you have to be in college basketball nowadays. You have to have the right returnees. You sprinkle in some freshmen, and you sprinkle in the right transfers. And I think that's how you make a roster, and that's exactly what UConn's done this year.
How strongly will this program be moving forward? I mean, is Danny Hurley building kind of a dynasty here? Dynasty, they have to still win this tournament, and they have to do a lot of things to be that. But is that kind of what we're on the cusp of with UConn?
I would think so. I mean, I'm not familiar with what their NIL stuff is, but I imagine they probably have a really good NIL program. And I would imagine that this is a team that's going to be up there for a while. Now, if you look, Tristan Newton's probably going to be gone. It's funny because you look at the guys who are seniors, but are they really seniors? Because we're still dealing with the COVID year stuff. Donovan Clingan, how much longer is he going to be there? Caravan, is he coming back? Cam Spencer's a senior. So like, is Castle going to come back? So I think there's some question marks for this roster. But if you're Danny Hurley and you come into a kid's living room, like he's going to get some good recruits and he's going to get the right transfers. So I think that this is a very important offseason because they're going to have some holes to fill. But yeah, if he does the right job, then yes, this is going to be a team that's going to be around for quite a while.
Can he take the mantle now as the best coach in college basketball?
I mean, that's a good question. Look, I think he's up there. I think Kelvin Sampson's up there. I think Bruce Pearl is up there. I think, there's a couple of guys who are on the cusp of being the best. If he could do the back-to-back thing, you'd have to say yes. But until he does the back-to-back thing, I think he's, top five-ish. Calipari's up there, even though, Kentucky's had their issues the last couple of years. I would say he's definitely top five. And if he wins the back-to-back, then yeah, he's probably the best.
Since you mentioned Kentucky, I'll go that route. They've been one of the teams that I think I've seen a lot of bettors kind of gravitate towards that can win the national championship. They had a little bit longer odds. I know they've gotten shorter as the season has gone along, but Kentucky seems to be loved. And it's odd to me because usually that's not the kind of team we go for. They're not good defensively. They're a really good offensive team, but we know sometimes it doesn't play well in the tournament. Your thoughts on Kentucky and why did everybody during the season kind of fall in love with this team as a potential contender?
Kentucky is a team that I do have. I don't remember when I put it down. I put a couple bucks down on Kentucky to win it all when they were like 20-1 or something. It's not one of my favorite futures, but you kind of, as the season goes along, you take some, speculative chances and things like that. But Kentucky's offense is as good as anybody else's in the country. And when Kentucky's on, they could beat almost anybody else in the country. And as you just mentioned, though, the defense is the problem. You look at some of these games where they lose, you give up 97 to Texas A&M. You give up, they beat Vanderbilt 93-77. Giving up 77 points to Vanderbilt is still a lot. The 91-89 game at Mississippi State, these are not exactly world-class offenses. So the problem will come in the tournament when they face an offense who can keep up, and then Kentucky goes cold and they don't play defense and they're not hitting their shots and they can't rely on getting a stop. And, I think it'll be interesting because Oakland's offense isn't terrible. Now, I'm not saying that the Golden Grizzlies are going to win. I do like what Greg Campy's done in Oakland, but this will be a higher scoring game. And if Kentucky does have a little bit of a lull, it could be a little bit of a close game. Now, the problem is if Kentucky comes out firing and they, they're making everything, this game will be not even close. But the Wildcats are going to be that team, I think, that you're going to either put too far in your bracket or not far enough.
So Kentucky, one of the teams I know everybody's falling in love with, and one team that nobody trusts, Purdue. Is this the year they are well equipped enough to avoid a letdown in the early rounds? And is this a team that can finally make a run after being good for the last few years, a number one seed again? Are they better equipped this year to make a run at the tournament?
So I think Purdue is an interesting story because they could be on the UVA redemption arc where UVA loses to UMBC and wins the championship the next year. And if you remember in that next year when UVA was a 1 seed or when they were a higher seed, they were down to the lower seed in that first half. And everybody's wondering, well, wait a second, is it really in their head? So Purdue's going to have to deal with the fact that their 1/16 game will be one of the most watched of all the 1/16s because they lost to a 16 last year. So I wonder how Purdue's going to handle that. I'm not a Matt Painter guy. I think Matt Painter is a little bit of the issue with regards to Purdue. I mean, look, you got Zach Edey. In a way, you should just throw it up to Zach Edey every time if there was a way, and you could probably win a lot of basketball games, and they feel like at times they get away from that. I think Purdue's got an interesting bracket. Kansas, with McCullough and Dickinson's status being a little questionable. If they play Kansas is a different team. Gonzaga, I think, is pretty good this year. And then you look at that bottom, when you look at Creighton, I think Creighton could beat anybody. They're a three-point shooting team, and the great thing about a three-point shooting team is if they're hot, they could beat anybody. The problem is if they're cold, they could lose to anybody. So I think Purdue can win a couple of games, but how are they going to handle the focus that they're going to need for that 1/16 that a North Carolina's not going to need, that a Houston's not going to need, that a Connecticut's not going to need? They're just going to dispatch their 16s pretty quickly. How will Purdue handle the extra attention?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting early on. They just see how they handle that pressure. I mean, it's been 3 straight years now that they've had early exits, and that has to be on their mind. And you mentioned sort of the rest of that region. Creighton's the one that interests me the most. Tennessee, though. Tennessee has looked good at times, very good at times this season. I thought they were in line to get a number 1 seed. They end up not doing well in the SEC tournament, and they end up falling out and getting a number 2 seed. But is Tennessee, how strong are they, in your opinion, or maybe not at all in this region?
I don't like Tennessee. I've never been a Rick Barnes guy. Go back to his time in Texas. Look at what the Tennessee has done in March. Rick Barnes is the type of guy, like when it comes to March Madness, I want to back coaches and players. That's why I like a Danny Hurley. That's why I like a Kelvin Sampson. That's why I like some of the other coaches that, we may talk about. Rick Barnes is not a guy I want to back. Now, I think they're going to beat St. Peter's. Of course, last year we said, I think Purdue's going to beat St. Peter's. And then I think that you look at that next game against Texas or Colorado State or UVA, like that's going to be an interesting game for Tennessee. And then, once again, they might see Creighton. And this Tennessee team's a little bit better equipped offensively, but Creighton could shoot them out of the gym rather easily. So I don't want to trust Tennessee. My futures money's not going on Tennessee because I just don't like Rick Barnes.
When you saw the bracket filled out and revealed on Selection Sunday, was there a team that you saw the roadmap for and went, okay? Because I think we were waiting for a lot of that. There's not a team, only UConn, really, Houston, that are very good. We know are going to make deep runs, not really matchup dependent, especially UConn. So we know them, but there were some other teams because the year was kind of weird where you go, okay, where can we find maybe a good region or a good path to get to a Sweet 16, a Final Four? Do you think, was there a team that kind of everything fell into place and you identified and go, okay, that team certainly can make a run here?
So, as a fan of Gonzaga, I hate to say this, but I think things line up decently for St. Mary's. That Grand Canyon game is going to be really tough, but I think that Randy Bennett is a guy I don't like as a Gonzaga guy, but like Randy Bennett's a pretty good coach, and obviously what Grand Canyon has done is tremendous, and it's going to be an interesting game. But I think St. Mary's playing Alabama most likely in that second round. Like St. Mary's' style is going to frustrate the crap out of Alabama. Like it's just going to be one of those things where Alabama wants to run, and St. Mary's is going to be like, no, we are not running. We're going to play this game at our half-court pace. We're going to make you work on defense and everything. And I think that's the right type of thing when you're looking at the Gales. And then look, if St. Mary's plays in North Carolina, same thing. North Carolina wants to run. St. Mary's doesn't want to run. And remember, last year, St. Mary's played UConn pretty well, was even beating them until they had an injury in that game, and then things went to hell. But I think St. Mary's has a nice little path and could be that sleeper team if you want to find somebody outside the ones, the twos, the threes to make a Final Four run.
I was really surprised that I kind of landed on the same thing when I'm filling out the bracket, just kind of the first initial reactions and just kind of clicking and seeing how things kind of fall into place. I was really shocked that St. Mary's, to me, I think I had them going to like a Final Four. I really liked how kind of that region falls for St. Mary's. But then I also have been seeing a lot of Grand Canyon love. Tell me about this Grand Canyon team and this matchup in particular. We do like 5-12 matchups. We like those for upsets. But why maybe is Grand Canyon for you? And again, you did mention it was a tough matchup, not an easy one. But what is this matchup like for St. Mary's in the first round? Because I think a lot of people identified that as the 12 seed to potentially get the upset.
I mean, Grand Canyon is a team coached by Bryce Drew who went 29-4. Now, one of the things I always like to do when you look at some of these 12s and these 13s that everybody's like, oh, they're going to beat somebody. Oh, they're going to do this. Like, you kind of have to look at their non-conference schedule and see, because if they, if they beat a bunch of nobodies and they lost to the tough teams on their schedule, like that's going to kind of downgrade you a little bit. And you look at Grand Canyon, they lost by 7 in a neutral court game against South Carolina. And I would say their best win is San Francisco. They did beat San Diego State at home, but that was a home game. And so San Diego State's not going to have to play a home game, and Grand Canyon's not going to play a home game. But you look at this Lopes team, they play really good defense. They're 10th in the country in 2-point percentage. They want to go a little quicker, so I think it'll be a style contrast here. Who's going to want to go? And you rarely see St. Mary's run. You just look at the possession numbers for St. Mary's so far this season. They rarely go 70 possessions. They've gone 70 possessions or more twice. The first game against somebody named Cal St. Stanislaus, and then they went in double overtime against UNLV, and that was a 77 possession game in double overtime. So nobody's been able to make this St. Mary's team run. And I think Grand Canyon could struggle a little bit in the half court, and we'll see. It'll be a tight game, but I think St. Mary's gets the win there.
Yeah, 12 seeds usually are the upset that people are looking at the most. It's happened in almost every tournament for the last, I think I just saw that stat. It's the last 32 of the last 38 tournaments, and 12 is beat a 5. Which one for you most qualifies for that as a 12 to beat a 5?
So it's an easy answer for me because I've covered this team all season here in Virginia. It's James Madison. When I just mentioned the non-conference thing, JMU's first game of the year, way back in the first Monday of the year, they went to Michigan State and won. Now, granted, Michigan State's not what they used to be, but like we didn't know that at the time. We expected a great Michigan State team, and JMU went there in overtime and beat them. And then ever since that day, they've gotten more attention from everybody. They've gotten a lot more focus. The stat was every road game in the Sun Belt, they had the most attendance. Now, granted, it's the Sun Belt, but like everybody wanted a piece of James Madison. It's funny because when you watch the selection show and they had Wisconsin up there and they revealed the opponent, Wisconsin didn't look thrilled to see James Madison there. So JMU will not be intimidated. JMU shoots threes really well. Wisconsin doesn't defend the 3-point line well. JMU has the size to match up with Wisconsin. And remember, this is a Wisconsin team at the beginning of February that lost to Rutgers, that lost to Michigan. Like, I'm not scared of a Badgers team who might not have made the tournament or might have been a little bit lower seed if they didn't go on the Big Ten tournament run that they did.
So I'm going to get to the first 4 games. Usually we do see at least, either the 11 in this case this year, it's the 10 seeds. We do kind of see at least one of these teams end up making some sort of run. I know Colorado, to me, I like Colorado. I do think they win that matchup against Boise State. And then we got Virginia and Colorado State. Any of the play-in teams, the first 4 teams that you like or could potentially win a couple of games here in the tournament?
Well, I'm not going the Virginia route again. I've lost way too much with Virginia. I mean, I've covered them as well and talked about them. I mean, they are one of the worst free throw shooting teams in America. And if they make their free throws, they probably have a couple more wins and their seed is a whole lot better. They're aesthetically unpleasing. You watch them play basketball.
It's
and half the possessions, you don't know what they're doing. Exactly. You're right. You can't figure them out. Here's the thing, though. I'm anti-Mountain West until they do something. The last 2 years outside that San Diego State run, the Mountain West has gone over. They've lost all the other games pretty much. So to me, you're looking at Colorado State, who thinks they were underseeded and may have been underseeded. But to me, that was the one thing the committee got right. Like, I understand everybody's unhappy that the Mountain West teams were underseeded. Well, win some games. Show us that this conference is more than just beating each other up. So I think Colorado State maybe wins that game. It's almost weird. It's like Virginia, who doesn't win games in the first round lately, against Colorado State from the Mountain West, who also doesn't win a lot of games lately. So it's 2 teams that are trying to change the pedigree of either their conference or their program.
And Colorado, does that mean you kind of favor them in that one?
Yeah, I think so. Once again, it's kind of one of these things where, like, I'm fading the Mountain West until they show me something. And Colorado shoots the 3 really well, and they play some good defense. So yeah, I do lean Colorado in this situation because I can't until the Mountain West wins more games. I can't back them.
We've been seeing it more and more every year. Lower seeds, the lowest seeds, end up actually being competitive sometimes. They've stolen some wins. We've seen 15 seeds win. We've seen 16 seed wins. What's the lowest seed you have that could potentially win, that you think, okay, here's a 15 seed, I like a 16 seed? Not to say they will, but is there potential for any of that this year from the matchups that you've seen?
So it's interesting. The 14s have the most potential, but they also have the tougher matchups. Morehead State's going to make things interesting for Illinois. Morehead State's problem is they turn the ball over a lot. Illinois doesn't force any turnovers. And Morehead State, I think, is going to frustrate Illinois. Now, I think Illinois is going to win, but I still think it'll be closer than you think. Oakland, we just talked about it. If Kentucky plays no defense, that one's going to be like 99-91. Creighton and Akron, if Creighton's cold, Akron plays pretty good defense. It's not as good of an Akron team as it was last year, but like that'll be interesting. And then Baylor, Colgate. One of these years, Colgate's going to play like the team that they were during the regular season. Baylor, I don't think is a good matchup for them. So like it's a really good group of 14s, but I don't know if any of them are going to win because we got a really, really, really good group of 3s.
Yeah, we do. Some of the division or conference winners, excuse me. They're in Duquesne, Yale, UAB. How do you kind of handle conference winners? NC State, also a good example of this, a team that didn't know if they were going to get into the tournament. It was going to be tough for them. They end up just winning the whole thing and beating North Carolina in the ACC championship game. How do you kind of handle conference winners? I know it's not always a guarantee that they continue to play that well heading into the tournament. They just went on a deep run in their conference tournament. So not to say they have any fatigue, but it takes a lot to keep that level of play up. How do you handle conference tournament winners?
You know, it's funny. We always used to make fun of, and we always used to comment on Xavier when they were in the A10 and they had David West. Yeah, I think it's David West. When they had their really good teams, they lost really early in the A10, and we always used to say, "Boy, that was never good." But then they always showed up in the NCAA tournament. And so when you look at a team like NC State, who won 5 games in 5 days, like what kind of practice are they going to have this week? Their game is on the 21st, so they have one less day to prepare, one less day to rest. So I almost wonder if NC State's out of gas by like the second half, because you can play on emotion every single night when your NCAA tournament lives are on the line. But once you make the NCAA tournament, do you still have that same fire? Are you still hot? There is the case of point where you could think like, hey, NC State's going to win and keep winning because they played really well. Or there's the thing that like their tank is on E and they're just done and they're going to lose and they're going to be happy they made it and they're going to be happy and they're going to look back at that 5 games in 5 days thing. But like, they just might not have any energy. So I'll be looking at that. Duquesne getting a BYU team that's very physical, that wants to play a little bit. Now they're in the Big 12. They're very physical. So that's not a good matchup for Duquesne, who was a good basketball team, but not a great one. I was surprised they got an 11. I thought maybe they'd get a 12 or a 13 or something like that, but there were so many upsets behind them that kind of pushed them up on the seed line.
Things got kind of crazy last year for the NCAA tournament. Not a lot of 1 seeds moved on. It was chaotic. We saw, I think, 5 seeds, 9 seeds. How crazy or not crazy do you think this year is going to get? Is there potential for any of the lower seeds or the middle seeds to make a run here, kind of like what happened last year?
So I think, St. Mary's, we talked about them. I think they're possible. I think there's a chance that whoever wins that Clemson, New Mexico game could go far. I really like Clemson. I like their guard play. I like, even though he left my school, Joe Girard. I like what he does. He shoots it really well. PJ Hall is a really good player inside for Clemson. Brad Brownell is a decent coach. He's a guy I want to back. And then there's New Mexico, who is so chaotic. Like, they could go to the Final Four or they could lose in the first round. That's just kind of the way they play. They've got really good guard play. But once again, it's a Mountain West team, and they made a run in the Mountain West tournament, played a bunch of games in a row. So you wonder where their energy's at. I feel like that game, whoever wins that game could potentially beat Baylor and certainly beat Arizona. So I think that one's the one to watch. Now, the question is, I don't know who's going to win. I got to dive into the matchup a little bit more. But Clemson, New Mexico, that winner could certainly make a run.
Who's your Final Four?
So I have UConn, I have Houston, I have Creighton, and I have who did I pick in this one? Oh yeah, I have St. Mary's as my fourth.
I have St. Mary's too. Yeah, I'm really shocked by that I kind of landed on that with St. Mary's. But yeah, I think like you mentioned, the roadmap's kind of there for them.
Yeah, and I think their style will frustrate Alabama if they get there, or Charleston, and I think they'll frustrate North Carolina. And then, once they get to that Arizona game potentially, or whoever comes out of that bottom group, whether it's Clemson or New Mexico, I just think that they've got a great bracket to line up and frustrate the heck out of everybody that they play there.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. So that's your Final Four. Eventual champion, do you have, I'm assuming it's just UConn?
Yeah, it's UConn. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and try and explain, somebody else. Look, an injury could happen, a cold night shooting could happen, but like, I just don't see, if UConn's fully focused, which they should be, it's the NCAA tournament, there's nobody who can beat them.
No, nobody at all. I truly believe that it's really, you're right. Anything for them, if they go cold or whatever, so be it. But that team it just seems like a machine. Danny Hurley has done an excellent job. So I think it's UConn as well. I want to move on to actually, because everybody's talking about the NCAA tournament, and I'm sure we're going to bet the NCAA tournament. We're going to fill out all the brackets, but that's not the only tournament that's around. We, of course, have the NIT. What is betting the NIT like for you? What are some things you look for in the NIT? Is betting on NIT profitable, even though obviously not as many eyeballs are kind of on that product?
Yeah, I think it is profitable. I think first off, you have to read quotes from like the coaches and the head coach and some of the star players. Are they happy to be there? If they're not happy to be there, you'll see it. Like, Providence was, Kim English came out and he had some very choice words for the committee. They already said they're going to hold out Devin Carter for the first game. Providence has Boston College. Do you know how excited Boston College will be to go into Providence, a team that they probably haven't played very often? Like, that's the great thing about the NIT. You have Providence, Boston College, Virginia Tech, Richmond, UCF against South Florida. Butler and Minnesota are somewhat close by for each other. Bradley and Loyola Chicago used to play in the Missouri Valley. So, like, there are intriguing matchups. The one thing you have to handicap here is motivation. These are not December 12th games where you would handicap this thing one way. These are March 19th, March 20th games, which basically one team may not want to be there. Is Seton Hall interested in playing in the NIT? Is Indiana State interested? I would think Indiana State would be. You've got the interesting case of UNLV, who has to travel cross country to play Princeton. Is UNLV interested in flying this far? Is Princeton interested after losing in the first round of the Ivy League tournament? So you really have to look this first round at motivation and then kind of decide who you think wants to be there. And more often than not, that's going to be the case. And then once we have to get to the second round, then you start handicapping the matchups because these teams say, well, we won the first game. Let's just go and try and win this whole thing.
Any games that kind of fit the bill there of what you're saying? Because I think the Seton Hall St. Joe's one, obviously St. Joe's local here. That's intriguing, honestly. And I think St. Joe's is a tough team. It's not my favorite team to watch. I don't think they're, all that great offensively. Sometimes they're just skilled enough to find shots. But St. Joe's is still kind of a tough team. But what does fit the bill there of what you're talking about? Any games that you've kind of identified?
So I like Richmond. I think Richmond will want to be there more than Virginia Tech. Castle Coliseum is a very tough place to play, but I can't imagine. And, remember, we're starting to get around spring break a little bit on certain campuses, so you may not have that great atmosphere that you have for certain games. Richmond doesn't get to play Virginia Tech very often. Seth Greenberg never wanted to play Richmond, never wanted to play VCU. It's now Mike Young, and he still doesn't play a lot of the state schools. So I think Richmond plus 5.5 or 6, I think they're certainly worth a look here. And then I think, the interesting thing is when you kind of look at motivation, like App State going to Wake Forest. App State is a team that rarely gets the chance to play Wake Forest. And if Wake Forest is not 100% focused, I saw they had a couple players, now not as meaningful players, but a couple players entered the transfer portal already. So maybe that kind of tells you something in terms of where the team's head's at. I think Indiana State is going to want to be there. I think Indiana State is highly motivated, especially since they kind of know their coach is leaving. It looks like Josh Schertz won't be there at the end of the year. And then, of course, in your neck of the woods, the team that I don't like, Villanova, they play VCU. And I think that's an interesting matchup because you have a VCU team that I think will still be motivated to go play Villanova. And I don't know if Villanova wants to be in this thing. I don't know what Kyle Neptune's huddles are like. I don't know how much they've tuned him out. I think it's interesting that Tyler Burton, the former Richmond Spider, is going to play VCU once again. And I think it's going to be interesting. VCU's offense, I mean, you watched that game on Sunday against Duquesne. It was horrendous, and they still nearly won. They don't play the Havoc style anymore, so they don't press as much as they used to. They've got guys who are really good. Max Scholga, Sean Bairstow, Joe Bamaseal. Like, these are guys that have been through the battles and things like that. They're veteran. I think VCU will be very motivated to go to Villanova. If Villanova is not, VCU could win this game outright, but they could certainly cover if Villanova is not at 100%.
Yeah, and Villanova's just not shooting well. And I think Villanova's very good defensively, I think. But that matchup kind of bodes well for VCU. VCU's offense isn't the best. They like to keep it a little bit slow. They like to play good defense. I think that game's going to be really low scoring. I haven't seen the total to that yet. It's 130.5. I have a feeling that one's going to be really low scoring. That could end in the 50s for both teams. So yeah, I do think you're onto something. Villanova last year, they took on Liberty, and we're not in that game at all. Not really motivated. So I think that is something that's going to be a little bit tough for them. Last question on college basketball, and then I do want to ask a couple of Major League Baseball questions. But first, last one for college basketball: should they expand the tournament?
So the answer is no, but for me, the NCAA can expand the tournament if they do one thing, and that is turn Dayton, aka the first four, into a mid-major bubble versus Power 5 bubble. Let the 16s go in. Let them enjoy their game against the ones. Like, take the 16s out of Dayton and just make Dayton and the preseason part, or the pre-tournament part of this, just all bubble teams, and make it mid-major bubble. So Indiana State versus Virginia, a Colorado State versus a Pittsburgh, a St. John's versus whoever. Like, have the mid-majors who nobody wants to see, nobody admits to liking, play the Power 5 schools. And then that's the only way I want to see this tournament expanded, is if we don't expand to the actual tournament, keep that at 68 or keep it to 64. But let's expand the pre-part of it and get the right bubble teams in there and let them play each other for the chance to get in.
Yeah, I love that idea, because I still think with expansion, everybody's, the mid-majors will win too. The mid-majors now will be able to get in. I don't think so. Like, I think they're gonna try and get every Big East team they can in there, try and get every SEC team they can in there, and they're still going to take priority over the mid-major schools. So I like that idea of, put the mid-major schools in the bubble with a major school and have them kind of duke it out for some of these spots in the NCAA tournament. So I really like that idea. That actually intrigues me a lot. I never really thought of that. That's a good way to expand. But want to move over to baseball. I know you do a lot of baseball as well. I see a future on the top of your page. How many futures do you have so far for Major League Baseball?
I think 10 or 11. I haven't even looked at the win totals yet. I kind of wait till the end of spring training because, injuries and this sort of stuff that, the Garrett Cole stuff is interesting. And so, like, there's still some free agents out there. So I'm just doing mostly individual player props for now. And then I'll do some of the win totals once spring training is over.
So is there one that you do like right now off the top of your head that you could think of from Major League Baseball?
So I think Tyler Glasnow over 10.5 wins on Bet Rivers is the way to go, because he's on a really good team now. And, he's going to have an opportunity. Look, he played for the Rays. Injuries are a factor. And a lot of my futures that I put in have a lot of injury risks. I have a future on Royce Lewis. I have a future on Luis Robert. I have a future on Tariq Skubal. All these guys have injury risks that come with it. But if Tyler Glasnow pitches his 30, 33, 34, 35 starts for the Dodgers, I think he's going to get 11 wins or more. So I jumped on that. And the funny thing is, I think on DraftKings, it was 12.5. So, and this is the key where you have to make sure to shop around to different books, because 10.5 is a fantastic number. The juice was only minus 114. So yeah, Tyler Glasnow over 10.5 wins. I think that's a really good number to get on Bet Rivers.
Yeah, and I think one thing I'm struggling with this year is, a couple of years ago, I had the Phillies making a deep run. I thought they could get to the World Series. Last year, I loved the Rangers coming into the year. I thought they could get to the World Series. They just had to get in, and I like the talent. This year, I'm having kind of a hard time identifying that team. I think maybe to me, Seattle is one. But is there a team that you're coming into this season kind of liking to make a run? Somebody that's kind of off the board. I hate to say off the board, but not the usual, not the the Yankees or the Dodgers. Is there a team that you think could surprise this year?
I think it's Cleveland. Cleveland keeping, well, I forgot, it's Clase, I think is his the closer.
Yeah, Emmanuel.
As a Phillies fan, I wanted the Phillies to trade for him, and I guess there were reports, but they wanted Crawford, and I wouldn't have given up Crawford either. But like the Guardians have a great rotation. Now their lineup is not great. That's kind of a scary thing, and they're going to play a lot of 3-1, 3-2 type of games. But I think that rotation, if it stays healthy, Bieber looks good in spring so far. McKenzie, coming off the injury, it's a little bit of a concern. And some of the other guys in that rotation, if they keep everybody together, I think they can win that division. I think they can win a round or two maybe. So I think it's the Guardians, but I also think, somewhat cliche, but the Orioles, I think last year as that getting their feet wet for that first round. I think they go a little bit further because that young talent, and there's still more to come. If Holiday starts the season up there, I think the Orioles getting Corbin Burns, that's so nice for their rotation. So Orioles and Guardians are the two teams that I think go a little further than people think.
I haven't heard the Guardians yet. I really like that. Now, I think you highlighted one of the reservations I would have. It's not a lot of pop in that lineup. Not really the best lineup, but the pitching staff is great. So that's one I'm definitely going to look into more, because I didn't really think to look into Cleveland all that much, but I'm very intrigued by that. And I'll go the opposite direction. A team maybe people are talking about, think highly of, that you just look at and go, I don't get it.
So I'm a little worried about our Phillies. Like, I am a little bit worried,
There's a part of me that is too. I know.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, Aaron Nola got paid, and Aaron Nola drove me nuts last year when he wasn't paid yet and was playing for his contract. Now he got paid. And, I don't want Taiwan Walker starting games. And look, I love Ranger. I think Ranger's arguably their second best pitcher. Like, if you take everything into account, obviously Wheels is one, but like Ranger in big games, Ranger when you need him shows up for the most part. I think that I can't say the same for Aaron Nola. So I think Ranger's nice. And look, can Sanchez take the step up? And then you look at this lineup, Harper's already got some back spasms. They've shown that they can go really cold as a group. I still don't agree with Schwarber as the leadoff hitter. I think it should be Turner or Stott. I think those two guys, I think you need speed at the top and put, Schwarber at 4 or 5. And the thing that annoys me the most, real quick on a quick tangent, is the people who cite the lineup record with Schwarber as the leadoff hitter is the reason why he should be there. It's the same record as, so-and-so number 2 and Harper number 3 and, go down the line. Like, Schwarber's not the only reason why they had a really good record at leadoff. So I like Turner or Stott there, but and then the bullpen kind of scares me a little bit. So it could also be the Philly in me who can't accept any sort of success whatsoever. But I think the Phillies scare me a little bit.
No, and I think you're right because of the trajectory of what a player, how many years into a contract starts to go. JT Realmuto is going to decline at some point. I don't think Nick Castellanos is going to decline at some point. Kyle Schwarber has had his 2 best home run seasons with the Phillies. At some point, that's not going to happen. And I think you're right. I've been very strong on, I kind of like Kyle Schwarber in the leadoff. He seems comfortable there. I get it. But I think this is the year that they kind of have to change things up a little bit. There needs to be an evolution with the lineup. You can't just continue to roll out the same lineup that you have for the past 2 years and think it's just going to yield the same results. I think things are going to change. This is where the young guys are probably going to be a little bit better. Bryce Harper, I still think is going to be good. Trey Turner's, I think, going to be their best player this year. But this is the year that I'm kind of worried about the guys that they signed a few years ago. I'm worried about Schwarber. I'm worried about Castellanos. I'm worried about JT Realmuto. I'm worried about the back end of the rotation. And also, I don't know what the bullpen's going to be like. They got a lot of quality innings from arms that I didn't even know existed in Ryan Kerkering, and then also quality from a guy like Jeff Hoffman, who hasn't really been quality his entire career, and all of a sudden becomes this really good relief pitcher. So yeah, I kind of agree with you that it is, we're in a weird spot with the Phillies, I guess. Right.
And I, Topper, who doesn't really apologize for the Kimbrel stuff from last year, he acknowledges that he may have made a mistake, but he said, I would have done it again. That's just a little bit of a worry for me when it comes to especially a bullpen where there are no defined roles. There is no defined closer. There is guys who will be 8th inning guys, and then there's guys who will be 7th inning guys, and ideally guys who will pitch in the 9th. But Topper has shown at times that he makes wrong decisions and he gets stubborn with certain guys, even when they're not pitching very well.
Yeah, I like Topper. I think that's where also I'm just not sure of what it's going to be like, because you can't continue to roll out the same lineup, do the same things you do year after year. And they've done 2 years of this. I have a feeling there needs to be an evolution. I just don't know what that looks like under Rob Thompson. Or, like you just said, he does seem pretty stubborn in keeping Kyle Schwarber the leadoff. In some of the bullpen decisions that he's made, is he going to be able to facilitate a kind of different lineup or an evolution for the Phillies for the season? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Again, I've liked everything I've seen so far from Rob Thompson. I think he's been excellent as a clubhouse leader, and they've gotten to places the past couple of years that have been very good. There is eventually going to be a change, though, and something different that they need to do, and I don't know what that looks like for Rob Thompson. So yeah, I'd like to. Don't worry. I'm also a little bit concerned about the Phillies. Matt, I'm again glad to talk to you again. It's been a long time. I love talking college basketball with you, even baseball too. The baseball season's coming up, so excited for that. But where can everybody find your work and find what you do?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter at Midmajor Matt, and hopefully be writing some articles for ftmbets.com. That's where I do my stuff. They have bet
awesome.
trackers.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a very nice site. There's a lot of smart people on that site, and I post on a bet tracker, and you can find my picks there on a day-to-day basis.
That's amazing. Yeah, FTN Bets, they have piled up a great roster of talent, including yourself now. So glad to see that. Also, very excited for strikeout props for the Major League Baseball season. Really excited. But Matt, thanks for joining me. Appreciate that.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Mid-Major Matt for coming on The Line Change. All right, I got a couple of bets for you before I head out. and end of another episode here on the line change. So a couple of NIT games for tomorrow that I like. I'm going to kind of piggyback off of what Matt said there. I like Richmond getting 5.5 against Virginia Tech. In-state schools don't get to play a lot because Virginia Tech doesn't want to, but I like the idea of Richmond going in there, kind of sticking it to them. I like Richmond getting the 5.5. Also like Kansas State getting the points against Iowa. I don't like this Iowa team at all. They're really good offensively, terrible defensively. I'm not sure what their motivation is going to be. To me, they weren't really all that good. I kind of like this Kansas State squad. I think they will take this tournament seriously. They're a tough team, and they have been all year. Now, they're not great offensively. Defensively, they're very, very strong. But I just think they're going to play that game very tough. I think they're going to be physically a little bit too much for Iowa. It's just going to be Kansas State knock down enough shots, create enough offense. But against Iowa, everybody is able to create offense against Iowa. So I do like Kansas State as well. They're getting 5.5. So I like that. So just a couple of plays for the NIT as we do head into as well the NCAA tournament. For the NCAA tournament, not really sure about Howard and Wagner. Not going to bet that. The interesting one more is Colorado State, Virginia. And as Matt mentioned, Colorado State and the Mountain West have really struggled in the NCAA tournament. So has Virginia. Honestly, this Virginia team has been ugly to watch. I hate them more and more as I watch them. I don't think it's not only just not aesthetically pleasing, it just doesn't work. They're a bad free throw shooting team that is in low scoring games. It plays great defense, but not good enough. Their one way to generate offense would be free throw shooting. Get easy points when you can, but they can't even do that. There is no easy way to get points for that Virginia offense. Colorado State isn't the best, but I like Colorado State laying the 2.5 against Virginia. So I'll take the favorite there. Again, Howard Wagner have no play in that one. Real quick, didn't get to talk about the Oscars here on the line change. We did a huge Oscars preview, but they got it all right. I like mostly that Oppenheimer was able to clean the awards. Really happy that Poor Things had a great showing. Poor Things a great showing for a lot of the secondary awards, costume design and set design. They really cleaned up there, and I thought they did that right because that, to me, was one of the best looking movies, one of the more original sort of styles, and the way that they set, the set design and the makeup. It was great. So I'm glad that they were able to clean up some awards there. I do want to mention one movie that is going to be out, that is out, I think, right now. I'm going to check it out soon. Want to check it out soon. Hopefully I get there. But pay attention to Love Lies Bleeding, starring Kristen Stewart. It looks gory. It looks it looks great, grimy. It looks awesome. So that's one. If you haven't checked it out yet, want to check something out in theaters this week. To me, the movie to do it with is Love Lies Bleeding, and hopefully I will be able to watch that movie before we record the next line change, which is going to be on Thursday, or come out on Thursday. So hopefully I will have watched that movie by then, maybe have a little bit of a review for you. But that is it for the line change. Thanks again to Mid Major Matt for joining me. Always love talking college basketball with him, so follow him at Mid Major Matt for college basketball and baseball as well. We'll have more tournament bets. We'll have more on the NCAA tournament, all on the next line change. Again, make sure to follow us and subscribe. Fox Sports The Gambler. Go on the Apple Podcast. There you'll be able to find the line change, rate, review, subscribe, search up the line change with Jon Jansen. You should be able to see it. And once you do, please subscribe, rate, review, everything you can to try and help build the podcast up would be very, very greatly appreciated. That is it for the line change. We'll be back for more on The Gambler.